Hi everybody! Today on the show we have personal branding expert Amelia Sordell. Amelia started her personal branding agency Klowt last year, and in just over a year they're a team of 7 serving 20 clients and growing. So how come they're growing so fast? Well, first, Amelia is absolutely amazing. She's fun, she's authentic, she's knowledgeable, she does what she preaches. She has built an amazing personal brand. But also, personal branding has never been that important. LinkedIn personal pages have 10x the reach of company pages. The growing number of people who build their companies on the back of their personal brands is the real proof why personal branding is the future of branding, or some even say the future of marketing. People buy from people they trust, and having a strong personal brand allows you to have a connection with people you've never met before. It's like networking on steroids. If you're wondering when to start building your personal brand, the answer is today, or at least that's what I'm doing. Here is the playbook. Enjoy this episode and don't forget to subscribe to our channels wherever you're watching or listening.
Welcome to The Product Show. Insightful interviews with founders and tech leaders sharing how they hack product growth.
Hi Amelia, welcome to The Product Show.
Hi Desi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to have this chat with you. You started appearing in my LinkedIn feed a few months ago. Quite a few of my contacts actually were interacting with your content. And your posts grabbed my attention because I think you come across as someone who is really confident, really authentic. And I kind of really love that. And then I was amazed by how your personal brand is growing, but also how your agency, personal branding agency, Klowt, is growing. So can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and how did you embark on the journey to building Klowt?
Yeah, God, where do I start? I think with most businesses, or at least most successful businesses that I know, not that I'm saying we're successful, we're doing well, but like we've got a long way to go. I always think though, the ones that always do the best are the ones that happen really organically. Like I didn't set out with a goal being like, I want to start a personal branding agency. Like that was never really in my design, I guess. But I started building my personal brand when I worked in recruitment, and I really wanted to get the recruiters I was working with building their personal brands, because it made a lot of sense to me that, you know, when people are your product, i.e. our recruiters, our consultants that were working for the business that I was working for, they were our product. They were what we were selling to clients and candidates. It made sense to me that you would empower them to market themselves in order to bring more money into the business. So I was like, guys, you should be doing this. Like you should be pushing content out on LinkedIn, like building your brands. Like you guys, come on guys, like this is going to give you so many more opportunities. And of course, no one listened to me because I wasn't doing it. So when I thought, you know what? I'll go and build my personal brand around marketing, which is what I did, to show them how easy it is to build their own personal brand. Of course, it wasn't easy. It was a lot harder than I expected. But what ended up happening was, again, I got like sort of 8,000 to 10,000 followers just really fast, just by posting about content that I was interested in. So employee engagement stuff, recruitment marketing stuff, employer branding stuff, like all the things that I was working on. Basically, taking people on that journey that I was currently going on and talking about the things that I found interesting, that I found with working in the business that I was working for. And then I started getting loads of DMs from people saying, hey, like, how did you get 10,000 followers on LinkedIn? Like, you know, could you give me some tips on how I can do that? And so being that I'm so lazy, I didn't want to go back to every single DM that I was getting that was answering the same questions. So I started posting content about it. I was like, hey, this is like, you know, if you're interested to know how I built 10,000 followers, like here's how I did it. And that kind of content just blew up. And I was like, oh, well, people are obviously really interested in this. So I'm just going to talk more about it. And so I then started building a brand, I guess, around talking about personal branding, specifically within the market, like the recruitment space. And so it was a real natural progression for me, because I think there's a very big difference between being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who was born that way. They regardless of whether they currently have a business or not, they will always be looking for the next business. They'll be always looking for the next thing that they can, you know, invest in or tweak or whatever. Like that's an entrepreneurial mindset to me. I think everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but actually the reality is you can be a business owner and not be an entrepreneur. Right. but the entrepreneur in me, I was working for this business. I was thinking, hey, like, why aren't we charging for this kind of stuff? Like, we could be making money here. So we started running workshops to teach teams how to build their personal brand. And then I was like, hang on a minute. I'm getting paid like 50 grand a year to do this for them. And we're charging like 3 grand a pop to do these workshops. Like, that's crazy. Like, I should get a slice of this. So in August last year, in the middle of the pandemic, like quit my safe job and started Klowt. And literally, like, I think I quit my job on the Friday. I started Klowt on the Monday. I had my first client by the Tuesday and my second client by the Thursday, and like 3.5 grand in my bank account by the Friday. Like, literally, there was no safety net. I was like, if I'm going to do this, like, it has to be no safety net, no plan B. I literally had like my mortgage payment due in 2 weeks. So if I didn't make that money in that first week, my mortgage wouldn't have been paid. Right. So yeah, that's kind of how it was. Very organic. It was very natural. Like I said, I didn't set out to start a personal branding agency, but I did. And now we're 14 months later and we're a team of 7. We have 20 clients nearly that we're working with on a retained monthly basis. Just, yeah, it's been crazy.
Oh, amazing. I've heard you saying that you think that personal branding is the future of marketing. And I guess this shouldn't come as a surprise, seeing what is happening with all the social media influencers in the last few years and how this is sort of taking over traditional marketing. But can you tell me a bit more why you think that personal branding is the future?
I don't know if I think it's the future of marketing. I definitely think it's the future of branding. So one of the things I always say to people is like, the future of branding is personal. And the reason I say that is because people have always bought from people. But previously, that sort of phrase or, kind of language that we use referred to having one-on-one meetings with people or one-on-one relationships with people. What personal branding does is allows you to have a one-to-many relationship that's just as intimate as if you were having it one-to-one. People feel like they know you. Like, I have people DM me and they're like, hi, like, they speak to me like I'm their best friend because they've been connected to me for over a year and they feel like they know me and all the things. And actually, we've probably never even spoken in a one-to-one basis before. So what personal branding does is it builds that communication, that collaboration, that kind of feeling of connectivity between individuals, but at scale. Whereas when you're doing business one-on-one, or you're making a phone call, or you're dropping an email, you can only do that one. Like, if that's one-to-one, it's not one-to-many. So that's why I think personal branding is going to be so powerful. And you only have to look at the likes of Ben Francis, of Stephen Bartlett, Gary Vee, Sarah Blakely, to see people who have built businesses basically off the back of their personal brand. I just think founders are brands too. And it's not just for founders. There should be a culture of personal branding within your business. My entire team is building their personal brand. And I'm very free in what they go, well, what can we not say? I'm like, look, I trust you. Use good judgment. But if you're passionate about something, you talk about it. I think it's really important for employers specifically to understand that if you're worried about what your team is going to say online, then you don't have a problem really with what your team is going to say online. You have a problem with your people. And that's either because you hired the wrong people or because you're such an egomaniac that you don't trust them enough to say what they're going to say online.
Right. This kind of reminds me of a situation we usually have here at Pony. So what we do is we build branding for brands, for C to Series A startups. And when we start working on their brand strategy, what we usually realize, especially for B2B, small companies, is the founder is kind of the most powerful sales tool a startup could have. So how do I convince them to start building their personal brand alongside their company brand?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And actually, I don't think personal branding can replace company branding, by the way. Like, I have to make that really clear. I kind of look at personal branding and company branding like the forehand and the backhand of a really good tennis player. It's great if you have one, like you could potentially still do really well in Wimbledon if you have one, but if you have both, like, you're going to be unbeatable. If you've got a strong forehand and a strong backhand, you are going to be unbeatable in a tennis match. And that's literally how I view personal branding, company branding, is this forehand and the backhand of a strong company. And simply, like, if you're struggling to convince the CEO or the founder as to why they should be a brand too, like, you only have to look at the stats. An individual, i.e. the leader of a business, has 10x the reach of a company brand online. So if you want your business to be successful, you need to be out there talking about it. You need to be out there building your brand so that your company brand and your company bottom line can directly be affected by the things that you're saying on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter, etc. I've built a 100% inbound business off the back of the activities that I do on social media.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we're like, year one in business, and we'll do what most agencies would do in year 2 or 3 in 1 year, because everyone in my business is talking about Klowt and what we do.
Yeah, amazing. And ultimately, people are buying from people, right?
Yeah, but more importantly, they buy from people they trust. And if you're a startup, it's very little trust that people are going to have for you yet, because they don't know who you are, they don't know what you do. But if you're the founder going out there and sticking your neck out and saying, hey, I'm the disruptor in this space because of XYZ, and I'm really passionate about these things, you build trust at scale, most importantly.
Right. So let's think about what makes kind of personal branding successful. And if you look at you as an example, as I mentioned earlier, I think there are 2 things here. One is authenticity. You kind of come across as someone who is super open, super honest, very confident, and you kind of more or less do what you preach, right? You manage to build your personal brand. And the next thing, which I think is very important, is being consistent. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you post content almost every single day. So is that it? Authenticity and consistency. What else would you add to the mix?
Yeah, I think people spend a lot of time worrying about the branding side of personal branding and not enough on the personal side of personal branding. So we can all sit there and make things look pretty and like make the perfect copy and like all the things, but people don't buy that. There's a reason why people are attracted to influencers and not mass marketing, although we're kind of going the other way now and that people don't really trust influencers anymore either. But there's a reason why user-generated content works. It's because it's trustworthy, right? And if you're trying to present something that is not really your true authentic self in any capacity, whether it's, in a meeting or on a date or in an interview or online, you're going to get found out. And also it's really hard to not be yourself. So yeah, I mean, authenticity is this buzzword that's thrown around in marketing, and it really pisses me off because it should be like obvious, right? Like it should be obvious. You just be who you are, but it's true. Like if you want to get any kind of following of any kind, like people can sniff bullshit out in 3 seconds. So if you don't really believe what you're saying, people won't be interested in engaging with it. And I think also on that same point of like being yourself and being authentic, like that boils down to also things like don't be afraid of being grammatically incorrect. Like people spend so much time being like, oh, that full stop, like that shouldn't be there. If you write how you speak, people read it as if you were saying it to them. And so you build this connection with them as if you were having a one-to-one conversation. People spend so much time worrying about writing copy for posts. Just say what you want to say and just get it out. Dictate your thoughts into your phone and just post it, because that's what's going to make people connect to you. That's what people connected with me over. And to your point, you were saying you come across as really open and honest, is literally because I write how I speak. The things that you're reading there in your phone, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, whatever, I've literally dictated into my phone. I'm speaking to you directly, pretty much. So definitely that's an important part. But back to your point about consistency, like whether it doesn't matter whether it's personal branding or it's business or it's like achieving your fitness goals or whatever it might be, the people who have the rock hard abs, the people who have the £1 billion businesses, the people that have the biggest followings on Twitter are the ones that just didn't give up. Like that is the common denominator between every single quote unquote successful business person in the world, is that they kept getting up when other people would have just given up. And so consistency is 100% the most important part of personal branding, because 99% of people don't do that. They will just go 3 weeks in, I'm not getting any results, screw this, it's not working. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. And everyone's gone, you just popped up overnight. And I'm like, yeah, I've been working on this for literally 24 months. Like it's not been overnight. It's been graphed every single day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes. And you say, like, I post every day on LinkedIn. Sometimes I post twice a day on LinkedIn. Sometimes I post 3 times a day on LinkedIn. Sometimes I post on LinkedIn, Twitter. I post every day on Twitter as well, but LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I've got an article coming out on Medium. I'm doing a podcast, like all in one day. And that's because I know the investment of my time and effort in those activities, I can directly attribute to the nearly £500,000 in revenue that we're going to do. So it's really important that people remember what the goal is. Like if you want rock hard abs, you need to keep going to the gym every day. If you want to lose a lot of weight, you need to stop eating sweets every day. Or you need to start eating healthy every day. If you want a successful business, you're not going to get that overnight. That's going to take years. And you've got to show up every day, even when it's shit. And it's exactly the same as personal branding.
Absolutely. I think by now no one actually has any doubts in the power of personal.
I know you say that, but like we live in this world where it's like instant gratification. We have Uber, we have Amazon, we have, Deliveroo. Everyone wants everything now, and it's ruined us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's ruined us. It's made us think that things come quickly. We completely overestimate what we can achieve in a day and dramatically underestimate what we can achieve in a year.
Yeah. So let's imagine I am your client and this is our first meeting. And just to give you a bit of a background, so I've managed brands with millions of followers. I've been Pony's social media audience to 65,000 people in a bit over a year, completely organically. But when it comes to my personal brand and my presence online, I'm absolutely no one. So I have, I think around 5,000 people on LinkedIn, which I built, over the years. I have like 1,000 followers on Twitter, and I've never invested any effort in growing my personal brand, which I know it's a huge mistake. So where do I start from? Is there a playbook, and what would be your advice to people who are just starting off?
Yeah, there's definitely a playbook, and actually we have one on our website that's free. So if anyone wants that, we can give you that for the show notes. So the thing that we normally say is like, what do you want to be known for? First and foremost, like if you want to have a strong personal brand, you have to be famous, and if you want to be famous, you have to be famous for something. Like, what is the thing that you're famous for? So it's identifying the kind of 2 to 3 things that you want people to think of you as an expert in that space. So for me, it's personal branding, it's being a strong leader, and it's championing startups and SMEs and just generally entrepreneurship. Those are the 3 things that I want to be known for, and I almost exclusively talk about. The second thing is, what do you want people to feel when they come across your content? Do you want them to feel amused? Are you funny? Do you want people to feel inspired? Do you want people to feel educated? Do you want to teach them something? Do you want people to feel enraged? Like, are you going to challenge stuff? And maybe it's all 4, but how do you want people to feel when they come across your content is really important in matching your tone of voice to who you are online. And then the final kind of piece of that initial puzzle is, what are the topics that you're most confident in talking about? We always say to people, don't talk about stuff that you're not confident in talking about, because you need to come across, like online, and I'm sure you can relate to this with the kind of work that you've done with brand pages, you have to amp everything up. Like if you want to be sassy, you have to be really fucking sassy. Like if you want to be funny, you've got to be really funny. If you like, everything has to be amplified in order for it to land in the way that you would have said it, even if it was just one-on-one, because the nuances of your tone of voice and the body language are missing. So everything has to be amplified. So if you're not confident in the things that you're talking about, that just goes to mush. So getting really clear on those first 3 things is really important. Once you've laid those foundations, it's then like, cool, I'm going to start talking about these topics, and I'm going to start talking about these topics in relation to the 2 to 3 things that I want to be known for. And so what you can start doing is building out a content plan where it's literally, I mean, that's very formal. Like if you, like me, when I first started, I used to just dictate thoughts into my phone, and that would be my post. But if you want to be a bit more organized, you can build out a content plan where it's like, right, on Monday, I'm going to talk about, leadership and the challenges that I'm having and the things that I find annoying. On Tuesday, I'm going to talk about culture and why that's important to build as a business owner. On the Wednesday, I'm going to talk about personal branding, because that's the thing that I want to teach people. And on Thursday, I'm going to teach people about personal branding as well, and just get a little bit deeper into that niche. And then on the Friday, I'm going to, share the promotion I just got, or share the promotion I just gave my team members, or even better, I'm going to share a screenshot of some results that we just got for our clients. And when you do that consistently, you're talking about the same topics over and over and over again, even if it's just in a slightly different way, you start to build up this presence to be known for that thing. And people start to kind of be attracted to you because they want to learn about those things, or maybe they agree with you about those things. And over, as I said, back to your point earlier about consistency, if you're consistently talking about those things, you will begin to be famous for those things. But like I said earlier, like it's kind of like going to the gym. You don't go, I want to have the sexiest body of my life, go to the gym for 6 months, get that sexy body, and then go and eat popcorn for the rest of your life. Like you have to keep doing it. So even when you achieve that kind of I guess platform that you're looking for, you have to keep going. You can't just go, cool, I've got 70,000 followers now, like I'm done. Like if anything, you have to amp it up because it's a lot harder to kind of keep people engaged when you have a bigger following.
Right.
So that's kind of the very macro, but sort of steps of where I would start if you're one of our clients.
Okay, and how long do you think I should stick to my plan until I start seeing results? And the reason I'm asking that is even when you start building the audience for a brand, in the beginning, you don't see any reactions. People are like completely ignoring you. But then over time, at least with brands, you start seeing more and more attention. Then all of a sudden, you are getting this, sort of influence over your audience. How long do you think a person should be sticking to this, even without seeing any results?
It's like saying how long's a piece of string. It depends on many, many things. It depends on how interesting you are. It depends on the language that you're using. It depends on your tone of voice. It depends on whether you're talking to your audience and you're actually talking about things that they all the things. But say you had all the perfect conditions and you were very authentic, your copywriting was great, you're being consistent, all the things. Like typically, we've had clients get inbound revenue off LinkedIn as early as 11 days. But we typically will say you won't start seeing results from your personal brand for the first 6 months, because people will sit in your network for 6 months just looking and waiting. They'll be like, oh, I've seen her a few times, she's quite interesting, and then they tend to follow up. But the thing is, when you start noticing the difference, it's kind of like a tap. Like you see a few drips and then all of a sudden it's like boom, and then like everything starts happening at the same time. But it's normally about 6 months.
Right. And what would you say to people who feel like, I don't know what to talk about? Everything's been said by people who are more interesting and more influential by me. So how do you overcome the imposter syndrome when it comes to personal branding?
99% of people on LinkedIn specifically do not post content online, period, the end. They don't post. 90% of people on the platform don't even comment. So chances are people aren't actually saying what you would like to say. And more importantly, they're not going to say it in the way that you would say it or communicate it in the way that you would communicate it. What you think is obvious is gold to other people. So just fucking post it. Right. Like this whole thing of like, oh, what if no one likes it? But what if they do? If the worst thing that can happen is that no one likes it, great. Now you've got it out and it's living out there and you can post something again tomorrow. Like we all need to get out of our heads when it comes to worrying about what people who we've never met before think of us. And I know this sounds like it's super easy for me to say, because people are probably listening to this thinking she's so confident, like it's so easy for her to say this. I never used to be confident. I used to be so shy. And when I was at a restaurant, my dad would need to order my food to the waiter because I was so embarrassed to talk to him. I was so nervous to speak to the waitress or waiter that my father would have to order my dinner for me as a teenager. But over time, I've kind of realized that like this whole thing of worrying about what other people think and imposter syndrome and not feeling like you're enough, first of all, it's completely normal. We all feel like that. Even your most favorite soccer star who's like, the top of his game or top of her game, she even has, or he even has days when she's like, oh, I'm not very good at this. Everyone does. Everyone has self-doubt. It's part of being human. I hate the word imposter or the phrase imposter syndrome because it implies that it's like there's something wrong with it. Like you've got a syndrome. It's like a medical condition. It's not. Self-doubt is completely normal. We all have it. However, where that self-doubt comes from is, millions of years ago when we were in these tribes, these Neanderthal tribes. If we did something that raised the eyebrows of the tribe or that the tribe didn't like, the tribe could shun us and push us out of the village, and we could get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. That's not a good outcome. However, we don't have that risk now, but we still have that same risk averseness because we don't want to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. There is very little that you could say or do in life or online that is going to irreparably damage you. If you're a good person, there is nothing really that you could do or say that's going to stop you from getting to where you're going to go. In fact, most of what you could do and say is actually going to help you get to where you want to go. So this whole narrative of like, oh, what if no one likes it? Or what if it's not intelligent enough? Or what if it's not good enough? That's just you self-sabotaging because you're worried that what if it does go well? And then what? So yeah, just fucking post it.
Perfect. So what are like other common mistakes other than doubting yourself and not be consistent that you would advise people to avoid when they start building their personal brand?
What should they avoid? Avoid overthinking it. As I said, like just post it. Avoid flip-flopping about loads of different topics. Like just get super clear on what you want to talk about and just talk about those things. Be also really kind of mindful that it's going to take a long time. Like, but people always give up. Like they go to the same thing with weight loss. Like you do a diet for 1 week and then you're like, oh, it's not working. Screw it. I'm going to go and eat that cake. And actually, of course, it's not working because you've only done it for a week. If you want to lose weight, you've got to go for like a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever. So understanding that Rome wasn't built in a day is really important. And then there's little nuances, like, you know, understanding how so the way I sort of see social media is that you are the same person on every platform, right? You don't change, but the language in which you communicate on each platform is very different. So I might speak English on LinkedIn, but in Instagram, I might speak Japanese, and on Twitter, I'm speaking French. So you wouldn't communicate to someone in Japanese if they spoke French, you'd speak to them in French. So understanding what works on what platform and why is really important. And the easiest way to do that is you just go and look at bigger accounts and just see what they're doing and sort of try and mirror not what they're saying, but the way in which they're saying it. So for example, flip books do really well on Instagram. Those sort of carousel images, they do really well on Instagram. That's not going to work on Twitter because number one, there's no capability for you to do that. But number two, Twitter's not really a visual platform. It's a soundbite shower thought, you know, here are my, you know, random ramblings about things. So why don't you turn that flipbook then into a thread? Because that's contextualized to LinkedIn, and it means you've changed the nuance, you've changed the language, and now I can understand what the Japanese thing I was saying on Instagram, I can now understand that in French because I translated it for the platform, which is speaking French, i.e. Twitter. I think that's really a really important point is people really miss out on. And I think also to that, and kind of tag on to that a little bit, I think a big mistake people make as well is trying to do too much too soon. Like you just nail one platform first, like go where your audience is, nail that, and then start looking at other ones. Like I got to, I don't know, 60,000 followers on LinkedIn before I even looked at Twitter. Like I was just like, I want to nail this on one platform. And then once I'm happy with that growth and that's sort of ticking over naturally, I can then go and focus on the next one. And then once I feel like I'm at that point with Twitter, I'll then start focusing on Instagram. And then once I finished focusing on Instagram, I'll probably move on to something else. But I think it's really important that you don't try and overwhelm yourself, because if you sit down and go, right, I need to build my personal brand, I need to be on this channel, this channel, this channel, all of a sudden it goes from being like this very simple activity of just sharing the stuff that you already know to, oh my God, I've got all this stuff to do. And I don't know about you, but I have a whole frigging business to run and 2 children to raise, and I don't have that kind of time.
Do you think there is a social platform that's kind of hugely undervalued at the moment, and probably people should start exploring it first?
From a personal branding perspective, I really think Medium. Like, I don't think people pay enough attention to Medium. So for anyone that doesn't know, Medium is a I guess a self-publishing platform. You can write an article and you can post it on there. But Medium has a huge readership. And of course, when you put stuff on Medium, as long as the SEO is decent, it will come up in Google results too. So for me, Medium is going to be one of my big focuses of 2022, is like getting articles out on there, more long form content, particularly if you want to be taken seriously in perhaps more traditional markets. Like, I don't know, if you're a data scientist, or if you're a Python developer, or if you're someone that wants to be a CEO, or you are a CEO and you're looking to IPO, whatever, having articles that you've written on a platform like Medium and getting attention on there, I mean, it's a no-brainer. And also, it's probably worth saying a lot of press go to Medium to pull out quotes from more famous people as well. So it's kind of like a 2 thing. Social media platforms, though, what are some of the underrated ones? I mean, TikTok. I mean, people are just, I know young people love TikTok, but like, it's so underrated for brands. First of all, brands have got no idea what they're doing on that platform. My social media executive or marketing executive, Danielle, is absolutely nailing our TikTok. Like, and of course she is, because she's 21 and she's like grown up with that platform, but she's doing an awesome job of understanding what our audience wants and like making sure it's translated into the proper TikTok format and working on trends, and then how to leverage that with stuff that we've already got, repurposing content into video content, and like understanding how to use TikTok as a brand, not a company brand, not just a personal brand, I think is grossly undervalued. But also I think older people, you know, when I say older, I mean anyone that's above like 28 basically, doesn't really view TikTok as like what it is. They think it's some platform that like teenagers are dancing on. It's not. It's the fastest growing social media platform in the world.
Right.
So it's so undervalued. And the thing is, like, it's not just people dancing. It's actually like, go there, find information, learn about your tax return, go and follow someone who's a crypto investor and learn how to do that. Like, people don't understand that social media works exactly the same way. Every single channel works exactly the same way. It's just, going back to my point, it's just a slightly different language. So TikTok and Medium would be the two that I'd be interested in. But again, it depends on your audience and depends what you're trying to achieve.
Interesting. Do you have a sort of a strategy for generating content ideas? What do you usually do to come up with ideas, what to post about?
Consume.
Yeah.
I consume as much content as I possibly can every day. I listen to podcasts, I read the news, I watch the news, I have stuff on in the background. Like, you cannot create anything unless you consume. It's impossible. It's impossible. So consume as much content as humanly possible. And then also just share everything. Everything. Like, there is nothing that I go, oh, that's a bad post, I'm not going to share that. I'm like, no, that was my thought, let's go now. And if it gets 170 reactions, great. If it gets 17,000 reactions, great. I'm completely indifferent, completely, because it goes back to my point earlier about people spend too much time focusing on the branding part, i.e. look how shiny and lovely I am, versus the personal part, which is actually, these are my real thoughts. And if you don't like them, that's also fine. Like, I'm 100% okay with the consequences of what I post online, what I say one-on-one. And therefore, to me, it doesn't actually matter whether I get 50 likes on something or I get 50,000. It's indifferent because it's my opinion.
Right.
So yeah, consume.
Right, absolutely. You can't write books unless you read books, right? So you
Yeah,
can't create
100%.
content unless you consume.
I mean, some of my favorite places to get information is through books. I try and read a book a week, although I'm struggling a little bit now. I'm kind of doing like a book every month, maybe. But I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read Medium avidly on my phone. I go on Quora all the time. Quora is a great place to get inspired. Just anything that you find interesting. Like, if you're in tech and you love reading TechCrunch, do that. If you're someone who's interested in, finance and VCs and you want to read stuff on Medium, like, do that. If you're into copywriting and Tim Denning's your guy, like, follow him and read him. Like, wherever you need to get your information and get inspired by, or go for a walk. You might not even want to read anything. You might want to just go for a walk and look at nature and get inspired by the clouds. But whatever it is, you need to be consuming something. You can't just sit in front of a laptop and just magic. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Absolutely. I think back to your point with repurposing content and recycling content, I often feel that people are not taking enough advantage of it, because what we usually do on Pony, so we would have an article, we would make a newsletter out of it, then we will have an Instagram carousel, then we'll have a LinkedIn post, then we'll post something that's native on Facebook. So from one idea, you can actually generate like 7-8 posts, which would help you to grow on or relevant platforms. So that's definitely
If not
something.
more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we run our entire agency. We interview our clients for an hour a month, and from that one interview, we create between 20 and 65 pieces of content.
Yeah.
And that's for one platform, by the way. So when we start rolling out to other platforms, that then becomes 100 pieces of content or 200 pieces of content, all from one interview. And it's the same premise. You take a long form, or we call it cornerstone content. So it's the cornerstone of whatever we're going to be talking about this month. We take one piece of cornerstone content and then we just atomize it. We blow it up into loads of tiny micro pieces of content that then get distributed on whichever channels they need to be distributed on. But I mean, why wouldn't you? It's the same, like, not just like doing that, but, don't be afraid of reposting something that did well 5 months ago. Like, it's the same as like, you wouldn't buy an amazing outfit that you felt so sexy in and then only wear it once. You'd want to rewear the outfit, right? Like, if you felt great in that outfit, you want to rewear it. So reuse your content, just tweak it slightly.
I guess what happens is that content creators are so tired of creating the content, that they don't spend enough time on distributing it. But that's equally important, isn't it? So what's the point of investing 1 week in creating something if you don't go the extra mile to make sure that it reaches as many people as possible, right? Can you give us a few examples of people who are doing an amazing job with building their personal brand? Who shall we learn from?
Who can you learn from? Leah Turner is really awesome on LinkedIn. She's a LinkedIn trainer. So if you're looking to build out your content on LinkedIn specifically, or personal brand on LinkedIn specifically, she's really good. Justin Welsh is I'm a huge fan of. Daniel Murray. These guys are all on LinkedIn. Belinda Agnew. And then on Twitter, I'd be looking at people like Daniel Murray again. He's great on Twitter. He's actually really interesting because he's basically built his personal brand on LinkedIn and gone, I've cracked this. Right, I'm gonna go and try and do it on Twitter. And now he's done it on Twitter. Like he's like a social media genius when it comes to personal branding. Matthew Kobach, really interesting guy. He's the head of marketing at Fast Company. And what he's done is really interesting on Twitter. If you follow him. Who can you learn from? Like, there's just so many people that I follow. Like, it's hard to name. Dane Walker on Instagram. He's really cool. He's a branding guy. And what he's done is super, super interesting. Those would kind of be my top, I think.
What would you advise people who struggle to convince their boss that personal branding could be empowering for the company as well? In the past, I worked at companies where employees' social media activity was sort of frowned upon. It was seen as a waste of time. And I'm sure that things have changed since then, but we still have many organizations that are a bit more conservative when it comes to personal branding. How can we help them see personal branding as an asset for the company and use it to their advantage?
I mean, you can do what I did, which is build your personal brand and then ask for permission after. Like, I know that sounds like really aggressive, but it's really hard to convince someone who, like, it's much easier to go with the yeses than try and convince the nos. So if people aren't on board with you, that's fine. You go and do it yourself. You go and build your personal brand, and then you start tracking the impact that your personal brand is having on your company. Look at your Google Analytics, look at the click-through rate from your LinkedIn page, go and see how the followers have increased on the LinkedIn page in relation to how well you're doing on your personal page. Start showing people the views that you're getting on your posts. That's what I did. And then people really listen, because now you've got hard metrics, hard facts. It's not just a wishy-washy, we should be doing this because someone on LinkedIn or this girl called Amelia on this podcast told me to do it. No, you go with hard facts, hard evidence, and be like, hey, I've been posting content every day for 2 months, and this is the results that I've got onto the website.
Right. And what do you say to people who are like, what's the ROI here? How do I know that I'm going to see any return of my investment?
I mean, it's like a $1 million question, right? Like, why would you know you're going to get an ROI on the other stuff that you're spending money on? Like, you can make an educated guess based on the statistics. You can make an educated guess based on other companies that are doing it well. You can make an educated guess based on your audience profiling, but you don't know. You're just taking a punt on stuff. You don't know if 100% that ad that you spent 50 grand creating is going to turn into any business, but you can make a pretty good guess that it will do based on the statistics, right? Personal branding is just another tool in your marketing toolkit. Like I said earlier, it's not going to replace company branding, but it's going to amplify it. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather be the business that's the choice for people because I took that risk and because I put myself and my team out there, than be just a choice of many. And that's what personal branding does. That's the ROI. The ROI is you become the expert in your space. And quite honestly, the way that the world is going and how easy it is to set up businesses and how global we are now, like, can you afford for that not to happen?
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be CEOs, etc., who are hard asses about this stuff because it wasn't relevant when they were, younger, kind of more creative people. Not to say they're not creative, but like, you get what I'm saying. Like, then it's not something that was a thing when they were coming up. But the reality is, marketing evolves, people evolve, and you've got to go in the way in which the trends are going. Because if you're not on up with what consumer behavior is doing, you will be left behind. So I would say, the ROI thing is as much as you put in is what you get out.
Yeah, and I read an interesting study the other day where only 30% of baby boomers believe that personal branding is important when it comes to buying from someone, as opposed to 70% for Gen Z, who are the future, right? Thank you so much for your time, Amelia. It was a pleasure to have this chat with you. I'm going to follow your advice religiously in the next year, and I'm going to report the results back to you in 12 months' time.
Don't wait a year. Start now. Start today. Honestly, there's no good time or bad time to start. You just have to start. Like, if you want to achieve anything, you just got to go with it. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
The Product Show is brought to you by Pony, a design studio helping startups and scale-ups build and optimize their digital products at speed. Check pony.studio to learn more.